I think I accidentally built the strongest Charizard possible, at least in SV OU. With Solar Power, Choice Specs, Sun, and Tera Fire, on paper, this Charizard should be able to melt anything. The only problem is, it's still Charizard. It's frail, slow, and requires an egregious amount of setup. So, I set out to find out one thing on the Pokemon Showdown ladder. Can the strongest Charizard possible actually win? Hey y'all, just to give a brief overview of the team, we are of course using Sun because Zard itself requires Sun in order to activate its hidden ability. We are running Weather Ball, Overheat, Scorching Sands, and Ancient Power, but really these two moves don't really get clicked all that much. It's mostly between Weather Ball and Overheat. We're pairing it up with Slitherwing just because we do need strong physical attackers in a team like this. Tusk because we do need a spinner. Zard gets absolutely destroyed by Stealth Rock. Walking Wake for our speed control, and lastly, Venusaur again for extra speed control, including an answer for Za and Valiant. That's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys within the games. First, I really wanted to make sure that having all of this breaking power on Charizard was worth it. So, in my first game, against all of these special walls, such as Tinglu and Bolt, I really wanted to see how well Zard could hold up. So my entire goal here was to set that up. I came in with Slitherwing, and I used this opportunity to get in Charizard knowing Petulant was going to come in. Here, I knew that I needed to Tera Fire my Charizard in order to properly do damage. And lo and behold, we get our first kill with Tera Fire Overheat Solar Power Charizard. This meant that Charizard met the breaking power requirements. The only problem is, I kind of have to expend my Tera slot in order for Charizard to actually KO something that was significantly important. Raging Bolt, for example, wouldn't have died to Overheat if I didn't Terrestrialize it. But here, when I have Slitherwing into Tinglu, I realized I could again force some kind of new position. I let Tinglu take all of that damage, and this lets Zard pick up another KO. By this point, Zard has already done everything it needed to be, and it opens the way up for the rest of my mods to seize victory. So in my mind, this was already a victory for Charizard. I'll show you guys why it's important later. All I need to do here is create the position where I win the game. Alright, I'm in the exact position I want. Here, look at the enemy team. Charizard has already killed both Raging Bolt and Tinglu, which are the only major walls to Venusaur. At this point, Petulant cannot do a single thing. Great Tusk cannot do a single thing. Hatterene cannot do a single thing. Everything gets cleaned up by Venusaur. So in this case, we can use this specific Charizard set, the strongest special attacking Charizard set, in order to serve as a wall breaker for our endgame win cons. In this case, Charizard does seem like it provides some viability for this Sun team. However, this is just one of many tests that we need to have Charizard in. Just because it's proven to be a great wall breaker doesn't necessarily mean it deserves the place over a Pokemon like, for example, Ceruledge, or let's say Raging Bolt, or let's say another special attacking wall breaker. So for example, we could even think towards mons like Comfey or Whimsicott. Even these underrated picks. What advantages does Charizard give over these other mons? This is the important thing that we need to address. Here's another great test. It doesn't matter if the only thing you can do is break. If you get outsped by everything as a frail wall breaker, especially in Sun, you lose so much momentum and value for your team. A perfect example right here is Dragapult. This Mon outspeeds almost everything on my team with the exception of Wake and Venusaur. So how can Charizard truly give or deliver value? I see 3 Mons here that Charizard can kill or come in relatively safely against. We have Magnezone, we have Gliscor, and we have Galarian Weezing. The reason is because Charizard here has the ability to be able to come in on these Mons and really fire off a really strong attack. For example, Charizard can go in against Galarian Weezing pretty comfortably and throw off a very powerful Overheat. The very problem is the enemy could either anticipate that, doubling into one of their fast breakers, or they could just trade with their slow walls and then bring in a fast breaker later, which can effectively nullify all progress as it now forces you to take damage on one of your win cons. Charizard is one of those mons that allows this phenomenon to occur. If this was replaced by something like a Cresselia or a Hatterene, or let's say a Ceruledge, things might be a bit different, where you can sort of pivot into something and actually use something like Ceruledge as an offensive threat, which creates a ton of pressure on the enemy team. Charizard itself is a pretty slow breaker, with only a base stat of 100 while also being exceptionally frail. So in this case, it undoubtedly fails becoming a consistent win con because it lacks the speed and the availability of positioning to grant itself those privileges. However, we cannot underestimate just how strong Charizard really is. Teams like this can work and they can be viable, but you have to play it right and you have to be patient and you have to get lucky, admittedly, at sometimes. Here we have one of the best tests for Sun offense, Fat with Slowking Galar. Here is a perfect test to how we can use Charizard. In our eyes, there's a ton of specially defensive walls on the enemy team. We have specially defensive Dondozo, specially defensive Slowking Galar, and specially defensive Tinglu. Usually, it would be difficult for Mons like Wake to break through these structures unless Wake was Specs and Tera Water. However, we have another equally strong Mon here in Charizard, which can hopefully do the trick. Also, being timid allows us to outspeed Kyurem, which is a huge speed. You can see that I'm trying to play it in a way where I get in Charizard as much as possible. This is because when you're facing Fat, there's really not a lot of things that are offensively threatening to you. I mean, what's Corviknight gonna do to a Charizard? What's Tinglu gonna do to a Charizard? What's Dondozo gonna do to a Charizard? Not much, really. Really not much compared to any other threat that Charizard faces. So one of Charizard's huge weaknesses, which is how frail it is, actually gets somewhat mitigated against Fat matchups. So here I'm able to just completely take Kyurem out relatively easily with no problem at all, and my Charizard's still at full health, and I don't even need solar power to do it. That's how strong Charizard is. Now, Slowking seems to have a bit of defensive investment, which makes this a bit harder, but this is fine because I can always cycle in Weather when I force in another Mon, and then just bring back Charizard one more time to pick up another KO. What I'm looking for here is hopefully to get rid of that Tinglu in one hit with a Tera Fire Sun boosted Overheat. And let's see if we can make that happen, guys. So here, I'm just gonna get up my rocks here just to put on some more pressure on the enemy team. Slowking tries to throw an Ice Beam to my Tusk, but that's not really important because I don't really need Tusk for much. I bring in Ninetales here on the Corv, which really wants to defog, and I throw off a very 3 Weather Ball. Now Corv is effectively dead too at 6%, and Slowking is here to click Chilly Reception. I can go into Charizard here because I know he's going to click Chilly, and even if he doesn't really kill me if anything. Now here I'm pondering, I'm thinking, well, it is actually a bit annoying if Slowking just keeps spamming Chilly the entire game, because that nullifies my Weather and stops Charizard from getting in those big hits that we want. So here I'm really trying to figure out how I can effectively structure this. But at the end, I know what to do. I get rid of Corv, which brings in Dondozo and forces it in completely. This allows me to set something up with Charizard as well. And now here I'm thinking about it closely, but he actually sends in Slowking instead, which is kind of interesting. It turns out that the Slowking is Shuka, but this means that Charizard now gets a kill with Overheat. Something is going to die. He sends in Dondozo, which takes an infinite amount of health, and I just click Overheat, and since Dondozo is unaware, this means that this next Overheat is going to do the exact same amount as the previous one. My opponent realizes this going into Slowking, but even a -2 Overheat does 43% to Slowking Galar, one of the strongest, especially defensive walls in the tier. He sacks Dondozo, and Charizard is effectively wiped out near 3 Mons of this entire team. Its job here is basically done, but let's see if we can get that Tinglu in or not. Instead, he just forfeits, which gives us the victory. Pretty solid game overall. Let's talk about this Charizard set overall. I mean, I'm going to be very honest, this is by far the most firepower that Charizard has ever gotten through the entirety of its career. But it's nowhere near as dominant in this generation as it was in X and Y and Sun and Moon for a very obvious reason. For first of all, when it comes to how frail it is and when it comes to the ability, solar power, I mean, taking 12% every turn just isn't viable in the long run, even if you're getting KOs left and right. So that's why when you use this mod, the whole purpose is to just send it in there, hope it gets a kill, and throw it out. That's the entire purpose of it. However, despite all of its flaws, such as being incredibly vulnerable to hazards, being incredibly vulnerable to any kinds of chip, and sometimes not even being able to kill a mod while also having to expend your Tera slot, it is still viable in some way. Yes, you can still use it within the mid ladder. With this, if you're using a Sun team, it's gonna work the best for sure. Don't try and use it without a Sun team. I guarantee you it's not gonna work. But if you want to have some lighthearted fun, if you want to break stall, then go for it, man. I'm telling you, this set is, regardless of how good it is so fun to use. I don't think I've ever had as much fun on the ladder as I did since the Flygon video. I have not had this much fun. So yeah, without further ado, I mean, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below letting me know what you think about the video, and let me know what you think about the style too. I mean, I'm down to do more of these in the future. Y'all just let me know. So yeah, peace out, and I'll see you guys next time.